Welcome to Come Get Woo Woo. We're your hosts, Becky and Ro, here to hold space for the unseen, the unspoken, and the deeply felt. This is a place for seekers, for those who sense that there's more, for those who hear between the words, feel beyond the room, and know without knowing why.
Together, we'll explore the language of spirit, the clarity of your clairs, and the signs that rise up when you're ready to notice. You're not imagining it, you're remembering it. This is Come Get Woo Woo.
Have you ever looked at somebody and felt like there's so much more happening beneath the surface? Like their face, their voice, their presence carry a whole story you couldn't quite put into words? Some people move through the world like this, and sometimes their astrology explains exactly why. Hey, woo-woo seekers, welcome back to Come Get Woo-Woo with Becky and Ro. I'm Becky.
And I'm Ro. Today we're diving into one of the most iconic charts of all time, a woman whose light still refuses to dim, Marilyn Monroe. Not the legend, not the tabloid version. We all know the image, the white dress, the platinum curls, and the happy birthday, Mr. President. Did you like that one?
I did. I did.
But if you look at the sky on June 1st, 1926, you see a completely different woman. You see the blueprint of a genius, a warrior, and a lonely soul who felt like an alien on her own planet. The human being whose astrology reveals just how much beauty, pain, magnetism, vulnerability, brilliance, and destiny were woven into her from day one. We spent the last episodes teaching you planets, signs, houses, aspects, and nodes. And now we get to show you how it all actually works together. Marilyn's chart is layered. It's emotional and complex, yet there's something about it that still glows. And reading it helps you understand not just her life, but how any chart becomes a living story. So, Becky, where do we even begin with a chart like this?
Honestly, with Marilyn's chart, you kind of have to start by admitting her chart is, like you said, it's just as layered as the woman herself. There's the Hollywood version, the vulnerable version, the spiritual seeker underneath it all. And then there's an astrological blueprint that explains why she could be magnetic and misunderstood at the same time. With that said, let's start with the big three, the sun, the moon, and the rising. And then we'll go from there. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. But first, just a reminder, if you need a visual like me, because we all know I like visuals, here are a couple of ways that you can view it using the data that I gave you last week and what Ro just gave you. You can feed it into astroseek.com or go to our website, comegetwoowoo.com. Click on the episode in the Come Get Woo Woo podcast section and click the button Podcast Extras. You'll find it there. And just a reminder, it's June 1st, 1926, 9:30 a.m., Los Angeles, California. So we're going to start with our sun sign. So Marilyn's sun sign is in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. And the sun represents the core self, her ego, her will, her basic identity. It would be the main character of your chart. So Gemini is an air sign representing the twins. It is ruled by Mercury, like we said earlier, the planet of communication and wit. Gemini energy is fast-paced, curious, and intellectual. It thrives on variety and is known for its duality, the ability to see both sides of the story and to hold different personalities at one time. This explains the duality of her life. She was a shapeshifter. There was Marilyn, the creation, and then there was Norma Jean, the woman. Her Gemini sun allowed her to jump between these two roles with ease. Gemini is a seeker of knowledge. While the public saw the dumb blonde, her Gemini core was incredibly well read, deeply poetic, and constantly questioning the world around her. She was a brilliant mind hidden beneath that Leo mask. So, with her sun being in the 10th house, and this is the house of career and fame, this placement changed everything. The 10th house is the highest point of the chart. It represents your career, your reputation, and how the world remembers you. So the impact that it had is because her sun was in the 10th house, she couldn't just be a private Gemini. Her duality, her wit, even her personal identity was destined to be seen by the entire world. And the result of that, she didn't just have a career, she became the career. Her very self, the sun, was fused to the public image, her 10th house. So Marilyn's public persona constantly reinvented itself. In many ways, an internal child. Her mind was bright, alert, curious, flexible, playful, and always eager for new experiences, but her attention span is quite often brief, easily distracted by all the other fascinating possibilities. So, Ro, do you want to dive into her moon?
Absolutely. So Marilyn's moon is in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. The moon represents your emotional landscape. It is who you are when you're alone at night, your deepest needs, your fears, and how you experience love. Now, Aquarius is a sign of the outsider. It is ruled by Uranus, the planet of rebellion and sudden change. While other signs seek to fit in, Aquarius energy feels different. It is humanitarian and visionary, but it often carries a sense of emotional detachment or a feeling of being an observer rather than a participant. So, this is the key to her solitude. Despite being the most famous woman on earth, her Aquarius moon meant she felt like an outsider looking in. She often felt misunderstood on a soul level, and her emotions weren't standard. She had a deep, unconventional way of loving and a profound empathy for the misfits of the world. Her Aquarius moon was her private sanctuary, the place where she was uniquely herself, far away from the flashing bulbs of the paparazzi. With this placement, you're not easily moved by emotional displays and can be curiously detached from your own and others' emotions and easily become too impersonal. It's the signature that explains why she could be widely iconic, yet feel misunderstood on a soul level.
Doesn't it make you want to just give her a hug?
Yes, absolutely.
As we were going through all this and we were doing all this research, I wish I could go back and just give her a hug.
Yes, I think she needed one.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, continue.
So she was seeking a home in the eyes of the public. So Marilyn's Aquarius mood, her need to feel unique and a bit detached, lived in her 7th house. Now, the 7th house governs marriages, partnerships, and the public. This placement means her deepest emotional needs, the moon, were always tied to other people. She looked for emotional security through her famous marriages, Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller, for example. Because the 7th house also represents the public at large, she had a bizarre emotional marriage to her fans. She felt most seen and nurtured when she was being adored by a crowd, yet the same crowd could never truly give her the private home an Aquarius moon craves.
Just fascinating. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if you wanted to do the rising sign.
Let's do the rising sign. Marilyn's rising sign was in Leo, which is ruled by the sun. In astrology, a rising sign or ascendant is basically your social mask. It's the front door of your personality, how you present yourself to the world and the first impression you make to others. Leo is the sign of the performer, the king. Because it's ruled by the sun, Leo rising people are destined to radiate. They have a natural glow, a regal bearing, and an effortless ability to command the room. They don't just walk into a space, they illuminate it. For Marilyn, this was her star power. People often remark that she seemed to vibrate with the literal light. This is the sun ruling her rising sign. Leo risings give the high glamour finish. It allowed her to hold the gaze of the camera with total confidence, creating an image that felt larger than life. It was the Marilyn the world fell in love with, the golden, sun-drenched icon. The rising sun is technically in the beginning of the first house. And the first house, if you remember, is the house of the physical body or the house of the self. Having Leo here meant that her physical body and her vitality were her primary tools. Leo is ruled by the sun. And since the sun was in her 10th house of career and fame, her physical appearance was directly linked to her global status. So every move she made, every dress she wore, and the way she styled her hair was a deliberate statement of herself. She was her own greatest creation. So just to kind of sum up the sun, moon, and the rising. So she had a Gemini sun, which is the mind that played the part. She had a Aquarius moon, which was the soul that just wanted to be understood. And the Leo rising was the star that captivated the world. You know, it was fun to break that down. Now, obviously, you and I weren't alive when she was around, but we still know who she is, even.
Absolutely.
And you can see as we go through this, you can see how all of this affected her status, if you will. So it's just quite amazing. Should we go through the rest of the planets then?
Yeah, absolutely. So Marilyn's Mercury is in Gemini, which is also ruled by Mercury. So Mercury is the planet of communication, intellect, and logic. It's how you process information, how you speak, and how your brain is wired. When Mercury is in its own sign of Gemini, it is at its most powerful. This creates a super processor brain, someone who is incredibly fast, witty, and able to juggle many ideas at once. So Mercury in Gemini loves playing with language and perception. Marilyn consciously adopted the breathy, naive tone and simple phrasing, but she was intellectually sharper than people realize. This is a classic Gemini Mercury. Because her Mercury is in the 10th house of career, her voice was her profession. The dumb blonde irony, her Mercury was so strong that she was actually a genius at playing a character. She wasn't a dumb blonde. She was a brilliant Gemini communicator who knew exactly how to use her voice, breathiness and all, to build a multi-million-dollar brand. She was famous for constantly wanting to improve her scripts and her acting craft. That was her Mercury in Gemini, demanding more information and better mental food.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Do you want to do Venus?
Yeah. So Marilyn's Venus is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So Venus is the planet of love, beauty, and values. It's what you find attractive and how you go about getting what you want. So Aries is the sign of the warrior. It is impulsive, passionate, and loves the thrill of the chase. So Marilyn's Venus in Aries explains why her love life was so high energy and often turbulent. She didn't want a standard life. She fell in love fast and hard. Aries energy, 100%. It's the me first, which gave her the courage to break contracts with major studios, start her own production company. A very Venus in Aries move to value your own freedom. Because of this being in her ninth house, the house of philosophy, travel, belief systems, and the bigger picture of life, she wasn't just looking for a husband, she was looking for a hero or a teacher, like the athletic Joe DiMaggio or the intellectual Arthur Miller, to help her expand her world. Marilyn didn't just fall for people, she fell for what they represented: hope, wisdom, opportunity, and escape into something more meaningful.
That is interesting.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
It's funny. With each part, we get a bigger picture of it. It just makes sense. So,
Oh, yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
so you want to go over Mars?
Oh, of course. So, Marilyn's Mars is in Pisces. Mars is the planet of action, ambition, and survival. It's your gas pedal, how you get things done, and how you fight back when you're cornered. When Mars is in Pisces, it is not a loud, clashing warrior. It is a spiritual warrior. This energy is fluid, intuitive, and operates through magnetism rather than force. It doesn't charge through doors, it flows under them like water until the room is filled.
I totally just got a vision of like a fairy going into, like floating through. When you said that, sorry. Go on.
I was picturing water flowing to the door. I was like, oh, I can see that. Light on her feet,
Yes.
Because her Mars was in Pisces, her survival instinct was rooted in transcendence. It gave her the incredible ability to survive a traumatic childhood by becoming whoever she needed to be, using her imagination and sensitivity as a shield against a harsh reality. She wasn't a hard fighter. She was a master of soft power. Her drive was fueled by her dreams and her connection to the collective unconscious. Starting her own film production company was a Piscean quest for creative freedom. She fought for the right to be an artist, not just a product, proving that sensitivity can be a powerful tool for rebellion. Mars was in her eighth house, which governs transformation, power, and the shadows. This explains why her drive was often tied to intense, life altering crises and why she had such a powerful magnetic sexual energy. In Pisces, this energy became ethereal and hypnotic. It felt almost dangerous or overwhelming to others because it was so deeply emotional and impossible to pin down. Marilyn didn't act impulsively. She absorbed emotional energy first, then responded from a place of overwhelm, longing, or fear.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go over the midhaven, which is not one that we actually typically talk about. Marilyn's midhaven was in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Now, the midhaven or the MC is at the very top of your chart. If the rising sign was the front door, the midhaven was the flag on the roof. It represents the highest achievement, your public reputation, and what the world remembers about you long after you're gone. So Taurus is an earth sign ruled by Venus. It represents beauty, stability, luxury, and the physical senses. It is the goddess energy, grounded, timeless, and classic. Marilyn's reputation is the ultimate expression of a Taurus energy. While other stars fade, Marilyn's image remains the golden standard of beauty and sensuality. Taurus is a fixed energy, meaning it doesn't change. This is why her image was still everywhere today, decades after her death. Since Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet of beauty, and her Venus was in the ninth house of visionary, her legacy became something larger than life. She isn't just a dead actress, she's a global symbol of divine feminine.
That explains a lot.
I know. That's why we actually added it. Maybe other people's charts, it's not that big of a deal, but with hers, it actually is a big deal. That's why she's still known today.
Amazing. It's amazing that the chart can tell you that.
I know. I always say, I'm like, astrology doesn't lie. Because it's not going to predict what's going to happen because we still have free will, but it gives you, it's always giving you opportunities. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Marilyn, Saturn is in Scorpio in her fourth house. So Saturn is the taskmaster of the zodiac. It represents our biggest fears, our insecurities, and the areas of life where we feel not enough. It's where we have to work the hardest. Scorpio is the sign of intensity, secrets, and deep emotional transformation. When Saturn is in Scorpio, there is a fear of being consumed by emotions or a fear of intimacy. Saturn brings restrictions, hardships, and early responsibility. Scorpio intensifies themes of loss, secrecy, and survival. So in astrology, the fourth house represents your home, your roots, and your mother. Having Saturn, restriction and fear, in the house of home, the fourth house, perfectly mirrors her childhood. Marilyn grew up without a stable home, a textbook Saturn in the fourth experience. She never had a solid ground to stand on, moving through foster homes and dealing with her mother's mental illness. Saturn in Scorpio made her incredibly guarded. Despite her Leo rising warmth, she had a Scorpion fear that if people saw her darker side or her pain, they would leave. This created a lifelong struggle with feeling safe and at home in her own skin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I really want to give her a hug.
Yeah.
So we have a few more planets. Now we have Neptune. Marilyn's Neptune was in Leo, also in her first house. So Neptune is the planet of dreams, glamour, and illusion. It is like a fog or a filter. It dissolves boundaries. When Neptune is in the first house, the house of self and personal appearance, it makes a person like a chameleon. They don't just have an image, they have the aura that others project their own fantasies onto. And we know that's for a fact. You hear men fantasizing about her for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
This perhaps is the most Marilyn placement in her whole entire chart because Neptune was in her first house of body. People didn't see the real Norma Jean. They saw the dream. She became the screen upon which millions of people projected their own desires, needs, and fantasies.
Yeah, the sex symbol.
Mm-hmm. Neptune in the first can also make people feel like they are dissolving. Marilyn famously said, "I know I belonged to the public and to the world, not because I was talented or even beautiful, but because I had never belonged to anything or anyone else." Wow.
Yeah.
That is the essence of Neptune, belonging to everything and nothing at the same time. Pretty deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the shadow side of this aspect is Neptune rules drugs and alcohol. This fog used to escape the harshness of reality. Marilyn didn't just act. She embodied a dream of stardom. People didn't see the woman, they saw the image. It's almost kind of sad a little bit.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why I want to send her a big
I know.
celestial hug up there.
That's a great idea. So now I love Chiron. Do you want to talk about Chiron? Because I think everybody should always look at their Chiron and see where it is and what it does.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to do Chiron. So, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. Marilyn's Chiron is in Taurus in the ninth house. Chiron represents our deepest wound and our greatest potential for healing. It is the broken place where we are most vulnerable, but also where we eventually find medicine we offer to the world. In Marilyn's chart, this placement speaks to the core struggle with safety, worth, and meaning. Taurus is the sign of the earth. It governs self-worth, safety, and the body. With Chiron here, Marilyn carried a deep, often unspoken question. Am I enough just as I am? This wasn't just about money, it was about feeling grounded in the world that had been unstable since her childhood. Because Taurus rules the physical form, her body became both her source of value and her greatest vulnerability. Her worth was constantly measured by external eyes, which only deepened the wound of never feeling truly solid. The ninth house is a realm of belief systems, higher education, and guidance. When you place the Chiron wound here, the struggle moves from the body to the soul. Marilyn didn't want to be famous. She was desperately searching for a truth or a teacher that could make sense of her pain. She pursued acting classes and self-education with intense seriousness, hoping that legitimacy would finally provide the safety she lacked. But Chiron in the ninth house often places faith in institutions, mentors, or partners who promise protection but eventually fail to deliver. Chiron always carries a gift. For Marilyn, this placement made her a mirror for the world. She became a vessel for the collective wounds of beauty and value, allowing others to feel seen in their own struggles with worth. I restore myself when I'm alone. This quote is the ultimate expression of Chiron in Taurus in the ninth. It reflects the hard-earned wisdom that after looking to teachers, fame, and relationships for safety, the only solid ground that she could truly rely on was the one she found within herself. Her healing began when she stopped asking the world to prove she was enough and started creating her own sanctuary.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we get to talk about Black Moon Lilith. Now, this is where she is her badass. So Marilyn's Lilith was in Leo in the 12th house. And now we haven't talked about Black Lilith a lot, but Black Lilith represents the raw power, the exile, and the inner badass. It is the point of the chart where you refuse to submit, but it is also where you may have felt deep shame or been rejected by society. In Marilyn's chart, this placement speaks to suppressed radiance, the tension between being the most famous woman in the world and feeling completely invisible. Leo is the sign of the sun. It governs being seen, taking up space, owning creative power. When Lilith is in Leo, the natural power of the individual is often shamed or rejected early on. For Marilyn, this centered in her right to celebrate who she actually was rather than the character she played. She possessed a fierce inner fire and a sexual sovereignty. But because it was Lilith, that power felt dangerous or too much for the world to handle. So the 12th house is the realm of unconscious secrets and isolation. It is the place of things done behind closed doors, So Lilith here doesn't express her power openly, it goes underground. So Marilyn was seen by millions, that Leo energy, but she was not safely seen. Her authentic self lived in a state of psychological exile. Because her Lilith was in the house of unconscious, people projected their own fantasies and fears onto her. Her power was admired, but it was rarely protected. It was controlled by studios, contracts, echoing Lilith's theme of being cast out. When Lilith in Leo is suppressed in the 12th house, she moves into the shadows. This manifested as private experience of shame and unworthiness, despite public adoration. In Marilyn's life, this surfaced through her struggles with isolation, mental health, and behind-the-scenes control of the industry. She became the symbol of the unspoken feminine pain, a woman whose radiance was consumed by the world while she remained in her heart in hiding. The avenging power of the Lilith in the 12th house comes from the ability to be a woman of depth in the shadow world. I don't mind living in a man's world as long as I can be a woman in it. This quote perfectly captures Lilith in the Leo in the 12th house. It is the voice of a woman claiming her radiance and femininity on her own terms, even when the world around her never made it safe for her to shine freely.
Wow.
It is the power of the hidden queen who knows her worth, even if she has to keep it secret to survive.
Wow. Now, this is Placidus, right? So Leo is in her first, is extending into the 12th house?
Correct. And that is, you and I have had this debate before, and it's like Hellenistic uses whole signs. Traditionally, you're always going to have Placidus in Western astrology.
It'd be interesting to see if this kind of changes.
It actually, it would, because so if you do whole signs, then the whole sign starts in the first house. There is no bleed into the 12th house. It actually starts at the first house and then goes from there.
So her Lilith probably won't be in Leo.
It would still be in Leo, but it would be in the first house and not the 12th house.
Okay. I'll go over the nodes. Her north node is in Cancer in the 12th house, and her south node is in Capricorn in the 6th house. So the lunar nodes represents the soul's compass. The south node is your karmic comfort zone, the survival habits you have mastered but eventually outgrow. And the north node is your soul's mission, the unfamiliar territory where you find true fulfillment. For Marilyn, this was a journey from cold duty to emotional sanctuary. So the south node in Capricorn in the 6th house is the mark of the stoic worker. Marilyn instinctively knew how to be productive to survive. In her childhood of foster homes, she learned, if I am useful, if I work hard, and if I don't cause trouble, I will be allowed to stay. In the 6th house of health and duty, this manifested as a relentless pressure to perform even when sick or exhausted. She lived by the Capricorn clock, the studio's schedule, valuing herself by her output rather than her soul. Her north node was in Cancer, was an invitation to stop doing and start feeling. The soul's lesson, Cancer is the sign of the mother, the home, and the nurturing. Because it was in the 12th house, the house of solitude and the subconscious, her destiny wasn't to find a literal house or a mother. It was to become her own mother. Her soul's mission was to find a private spiritual refuge where she could finally be soft. While the world saw a sex symbol, her North Node was begging her to be a nurturer of her own inner child. Marilyn's ultimate destiny was to release the Capricorn belief that she had to be useful to be worthy. Her North Node offered her a life where softness was strength and self-care was sacred.
See, and I think this is one of those things that we can all improve our lives if we start looking at some of these aspects. She could have had a much easier life. You know, I don't know. I just think we learn so much from these aspects of it.
No, I agree. And just how much self-care is important.
Oh,
Your
I
own
agree.
being, you know.
I agree. So we do have some key aspects that influenced her life. Now, we've talked about aspects before. We've got squares, conjunctions, trines, and oppositions. So Neptune squared her midhaven. So this is that planet of illusion. The midhaven is the public reputation. Neptune is the planet of glamour and fog. This aspect made her a literal screen upon which the world projected their fantasies to give her the legacy Marilyn glow. But it also meant the public could never truly see the real Norma Jean behind the mist, which is kind of sad, but
I agree.
so she also had a square between her Saturn and her moon. Now, a square, if you remember right, is that basic argument, and it's a challenge that you can learn from. So this is called the unmothered child aspect. Saturn, restriction, it clashes with the moon, emotions and mother, created a long life feeling emotional coldness and lack of safety. It explains why, despite all the love of the fans, she often felt fundamentally lonely and hollow inside. We had an interesting one that I've never come across before, but it was definitely something notable. She had a fixed T-square. Her moon was square her Saturn was square her Neptune. So that it just made a big triangle, if you will. So it's called the tragic triangle. So this T-square is a high tension triangle where three planets are at tug of war in fixed signs. So Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. This creates a personality that's incredibly resilient, but can feel stuck in a cycle of emotional pain. It represents massive internal pressure that demands to be resolved. So this aspect is an astrological signature of the inner lonely girl. The tension between her moon being squeezed by Saturn and Neptune, the result is I'm loved by millions, but I'm lonely aspect. Saturn brought the pain of her childhood into her adult relationships, while Neptune made her feel like she had to play a part to be loved. It was a constant battle between reality and the dream. So, yeah, pretty strong one there.
Yeah, you want to give her a hug?
I know. Like all of it. I mean, she still is amazing. I have so much more
Respect.
yeah, I have so much more respect for her because going through her chart, she overcomes so much.
Agreed.
It's amazing.
And a lot of it I didn't know, like, because you've heard of her, but I didn't know things about her before we researched her, like she was in foster care.
Yeah, I agree. And again, her resilience over all of this, all of these aspects against her, and she still came up on top, though she struggled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll let you continue.
A lot of internal struggle.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't think this one is as sad, but it is Venus conjunct the part of fortune in Aries. This is known, or we've coined it, the golden spark. So, Venus, which is beauty and values, is standing side by side with the part of fortune, success, and luck. A conjunction happens when 2 points are fused. When you fuse Venus with the part of fortune, you get a destiny that is inextricably linked to beauty, charisma, and the public affection. In the fire sign of Aries, the energy is pioneering, bold, and incredibly bright. This is the aspect that made her a global icon. Because her Venus is fused with her fortune, her very way of being was her greatest asset. She didn't have to do anything to be valuable. She simply had to be herself. This created that legendary inner light that made people feel like they were looking at something lucky, rare, and precious. The Venus fortune in Aries meant her fortune came from independence. The Aries is the sign of the self-starter. This astrological moxie that gave her courage to break the mold, starting her own production company, was the ultimate expression of this. She found her greatest success when she stopped being a studio product and became an independent Aries force. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the infant. This conjunction gave her that innocent but bold look. It was raw, fresh energy that felt new every time she appeared on screen. It was calculated sexuality. It was spontaneous, fiery joy that the world found irresistible.
Okay, so as you're reading this, I'm just like, wow, if she could only see how everybody around her, fans and stuff like that, if she only saw how she was seen and not how she felt.
Yes, absolutely. And to have the gumption to like start your own production studio, because that definitely took moxie.
Well, and the thing about it is back then, I mean, here it's like, oh, you started your own company. That's fine for a woman. Not back then. I mean, they just didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Women back then had a place. And it wasn't in the studio or doing all that.
Yeah, that was in the 50s, 60s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
she was a badass and didn't know it.
She was. And like I said, if she could have only seen, you'd almost guarantee that she was a symbol more than a sex symbol. She was an icon and leader for women in that business.
Absolutely. Yep.
Years later, they wouldn't have probably had a chance to have their own production company if it wasn't for her. I don't know, just kind of cool. So we do have a few more, and I am going to do this Pluto square ascendant. So now remember, Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, and underworld. When it squares your rising sign, the person's very presence is charged. People are either obsessed with them or intimidated by them. There is no middle ground. So this is why people were and still are obsessed with her. Pluto in her 11th house, squaring her rising sign, which was Leo, which meant the public's love for her, often obsessive, controlling, and heavy. She couldn't just be normal star. It gave her a haunting quality. You don't just look at a photo of Marilyn, you feel like you're looking into the soul that has depth. Added the layers of darkness and power. Marilyn's life began in the darkness of her fourth house, Saturn in Scorpio. This is the astrological signature of a broken home. Saturn here acted as a cold wall, denying her stability, of a mother and sanctuary. It created a deep wound, a fear that her true, messy, emotional self was too much for anyone to love. Because of this, she spent her life looking for a home in the eyes of others, hence the moon in the seventh house.
Wow.
So I think you need to brighten it up a little bit. You want to talk about our next one, which is a little bit.
Yes, I'll do the.
You do the good ones, please,
Yes,
because
I'll do the.
apparently I'm a Debbie Downer. I'm going to tell all the Debbie Downer ones.
So the
Brighten
next
us up, bro.
the next one we have is the Golden Trio in the ninth house, which is Venus, 20 degrees Aries, Chiron, 0 degrees Taurus, and the part of fortune, 21 degrees Aries, all in the ninth house. This is where her moxie lived. The ninth house is the house of expansion and meaning. So having her fortune and Venus here meant her success, the fortune, and her beauty, Venus, was tied to her pioneering spirit, Aries. However, because the Chiron, the wound, is right there at 0 degrees Taurus, she always felt a deep insecurity about her worth and education. She was constantly searching for higher meaning in the ninth house to justify her value.
One of the conflicts that she constantly was dealing with is, you remember that fixed T-square?
Mm-hmm.
It was a constant pull at her. So that rising sign always demanding that she be in the spotlight, where the Aquarius moon demanded that she stayed detached and unique, where you had the Scorpio Saturn, she had to keep all of her secrets safe. So this internal tug of war created a Marilyn paradox. She was the most desired woman in the world, yet her Aquarius moon made her feel like the lonely outsider. She was a genius intellectual who was only allowed to be a sex symbol. The Pluto square, her ascendant, meant that the public didn't just like her, they were obsessed with her. Their love was a weight. With her delicate Neptune in the first house, felt like she had to disappear into.
Wow.
So that actually, that certainly explains why she just couldn't give it up. She went down with the ship,
Yeah, I don't think the world would want her to just give it up.
It is true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because her Mars was in the 8th house, which is the house of transformation, and her midhaven was in Taurus, Taurus being stability, she achieved the ultimate paradox. She is both a haunting, shifting mystery that we're still trying to solve, a rock-solid pillar of pulp culture that we will never move. She was fierce enough to build her own empire through sheer Taurus persistent, but soulful enough, Mars and Pisces, to remember as a vision of grace that transcends time.
I've got a question for you. Do you think that when you play a part as well as she did, she didn't just play a part, she became the part, that she started to believe everything that she was putting out there?
I think she believed her inner world, her inner being, more than she believed her outer being.
Well, anybody that has done any shadow work, that they know that speaks louder than the world around us. How you speak to yourself truly is what you embody after a while.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's interesting, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting question. I don't know, Yeah, like you wish she was here so she could, answer your questions.
Yes. I have so many questions. Just come on.
Oh, maybe you can meet her in a dream.
There we go.
That would be cool.
I'll tell my soul that we need to talk, because I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. So this has been a very interesting and enlightening episode. We've peeled back the layers of Marilyn Monroe's chart and discovered the truth beneath the icon. Not a myth, not a headline, but deeply complex human being. Her astrology reminds us that a chart isn't about fate or failure. It's about understanding the full story of a soul. Now it's your turn to take what you've learned and turn it inward. Notice where you shine, where you feel tender, and where your own chart asks for compassion rather than judgment. Astrology isn't meant to label us. It's meant to help us see ourselves more clearly. I just love doing this episode. Becky, what are we doing next week?
Well, in next week's episode, it's going to be another Messages in Motion. We'll be shifting from analysis into lived experiences, focusing on how signs and symbols speak to us in real time and how spirit communicates through everyday moments. And here are the words for next week from the Woo Woo Seeker's Journal, A Journey from Your Signs and Symbols, Book 1. Fear, Forest, and Cup. See what rises, see what resonates. You can find the meditations for these words on our YouTube channel at Woo Woo Seekers, and all the words are available through our newsletter at comegetwoowoo.com, with new meditations released the first of every month. If you want to enlighten your own journey, check out our meditation series, Sacred Tree, and newly released Soul's Garden, also available on our Woo Woo channel at Woo Woo Seekers. Thank you.
Thanks for getting woo-woo with us today. If something sparked a memory, a message, or just made you smile, share it with a fellow seeker, because the journey is always better when you can grow together. Be sure to find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Woo Woo Seekers, so you can like, follow, and subscribe.
You can also follow us by visiting our website, comegetwoowoo.com. We are so much more than just another podcast. We're building a community of seekers just like us. We love hearing from you. If you've got signs, symbols, or stories that you want to share, email us at woowooseekers@gmail.com. Or any questions about today's episode, you can email us at comegetwoowoo@gmail.com.
Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and as always, come get woo-woo with us.